Okay, so our next class at the John David Ebert School for the Study of Culture, Cosmology, and the Arts will be What is Hypermodernity? And this will take place August 9th, Saturdays at 1 p.m. MST. Each class is 2 hours. It'll go from, 8 Saturdays in a row from August 9th to September 27th. And if you want to enroll, just hit me up at johndavidebert@gmail.com. And so what this is, number one, what I've done with the differing fonts, or the different sizes actually, of the title, is I'm indicating the disintegrative impact that our internet chatter has had on our language. For instance, we're getting new words in with hypermodernity, like, say, lol. Lol is going to be in the dictionary in the future. I can guarantee you that it will, as well as all kinds of other abbreviations like HMU, hit me up. There's hordes of them. And it has a degenerative and disintegrative effect on the language. I'm with Heidegger on this, with his idea about Gerede being the idle chatter of the crowd, which has a decaying effect on language. And the poet, as Heidegger puts it, his task is to preserve the language, but also to invent new forms of the language. So the reading for this will be my various essays on hypermodernity. I've got a few on Substack. The initial essay that I published on my website, culturaldiscourse.com, will start with that essay. And we'll go through and we'll look at the morphological structures, you might say. We'll do an internal shamanic X-ray anatomy of the three modernities, which begins with modernity proper in the 1860s in Paris. And Paris is the capital of the 19th century, as Walter Benjamin said. And then we'll move into post-modernity, which comes in at the end of World War II, and then hypermodernity, which comes in 1995, when the internet was turned over to the public sector from the National Science Foundation. And the internet becomes the driving force for a whole new cultural mentality that is hypermodern and has nothing to do whatsoever with postmodernity. So we'll look at what those differences are, structurally speaking, and they are profound. We'll look at all kinds of different phenomena, sort of the way Gebser does in his book, The Ever-Present Origin. In the second volume, the first volume, he introduces his concept of 5 different mutations of consciousness: the archaic, the magical, the mythical, the mental, with two phases for the mental, pre-perspectival and perspectival, and then finally the integral, the integral, which transcends and includes all of those previous forms of consciousness. And so the integral, it comes in during modernity, and the Earth symbol for it is the hyperdimensional object, as I wrote about it in my book, Art After Metaphysics. And then we'll look at postmodernity, the Earth symbol for which is the junk heap. We just recently, in another class on J.G. Ballard, read his book, The Atrocity Exhibition, which came out in the late 1960s, and which is the absolute epitome of the junk heap, that novel. It's even more so than Gravity's Rainbow, or a William Burroughs novel. They all presuppose the junk heap, the deconstructed pile of dismantled and canceled signifieds that built up the Western tradition, the Christian tradition, as well as the scientific materialism, all of which justified genocide and colonialization. And so the task of postmodernity is disintegral. To re-territorialize Gebser's terminology, the task of modernity, I agree with him, was integral. But the task of postmodernity is disintegral. It's pulling pieces of what Derrida called the transcendental signifieds of the Western tradition apart, dismantling them. So in hypermodernity, we're left with that junk heap, but now the task is reintegral. It's about building a new kind of world with its own kind of spirituality, a post-Christian spirituality, and the fundamental Earth symbol for which is the multiverse. And so we'll look at the examples of that in film, with films like Everything Everywhere All at Once, and in fiction, such as with Thomas Pynchon's magnificent novel Against the Day, which also presupposes the multiverse, as does Mason and Dixon before it. Each of those novels gets better as he goes. Gravity's Rainbow has the most fame, but I would say that Mason and Dixon is twice as good as Gravity's Rainbow, and Against the Day is twice as good, at least, as Mason and Dixon. So he gets better and better as he goes along, and he is absolutely, nowadays anyway, a hypermodern author, even though he started as Pomo. just as David Lynch did with his movies. He started out as a postmodern filmmaker making fun of meaning in an absurd universe of meaninglessness, starting with Eraserhead and going down through his Pomo version of Dune, which sort of mocks and makes fun of the whole genre of space opera. He doesn't take it seriously, which is probably why it failed at the box office. All the little snarky jokes that he has going all through the film. It's almost a parody of space opera, that film. And then Blue Velvet, of course, is the epitome of his post-Pomo career, and then after that, Wild at Heart. But starting with Lost Highway, we get to the multiverse. It's a different cosmology that he presupposes of astral planes and multiple dimensions with spirit beings flitting in and out of our world, the material plane. Same thing in Mulholland Drive and in the Inland Empire was what I was thinking of. That's sort of his, I think of those as his Los Angeles trilogy. And then the crown jewel, of course, for his hypermodern work is Twin Peaks Season 3. So we'll look at all those kinds of things. We'll look at the painting, poetry, literature. We'll read some of the essays of Michael Aaron Kamens, as well as look at some of his poetry from Absences, which is absolutely hypermodern. He and I sort of co-fleshed the concept out. The concept pre-existed both of us, but I remember doing an internet search on it back when I wrote that essay on cultural discourse on hypermodernity. There was no clear definition of it anywhere. I checked, so I decided to write that essay, and I figured it out. So, and then ultimately, out of all these classroom discussions, I think what will happen is I will pull a book out of all of this, and the book will be called "What is Hypermodernity?" And we'll just go through. And so if you would like to participate in these discussions, who knows, you might wind up in the book. So it'll be 8 Saturdays in a row, and the fee to enroll to attend live is $250 if you want to attend the class live. If not, and you just want a subscription to the classroom discussions, it'll be $150. I believe we're going to have a blast with this class. It's going to be a lot of fun. I've canceled for the time being the class on Gnosticism. For the time being, I think the class is more important and will have a better turnout anyway. Okay, so, and keep in mind too that I am no longer on Teachable. I have no use for that platform whatsoever. They doubled their prices. The monthly rent was $62, and they doubled it in July to $189 a month. For what exactly? So I don't need them. I have my own school. It exists in the internet. It goes where I go. Okay, so yeah, let's get this party started. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have a really good turnout. Already have quite a good response from advertising this on Substack. So it should be a good group. Okay, that's it. I'll see you in class.